Ever get that feeling? Like your phone's got this like a tractor beam or something just pulling at you?
Yeah.
You're trying to like focus on something important you actually care about, and your brain's still like, what's happening on that little screen?
Right, exactly. It's like having this little digital toddler in your pocket constantly demanding attention.
Yes. And it's funny because when I was writing deep work, that was one of the biggest things people kept bringing up.
Really?
Yeah, so many readers were like, love the focus tips for work, but what about the rest of life? This tech stuff feels like it's sucking all the joy out of our downtime. Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's not just about getting work done. It's about like living a good life overall.
Exactly. And that's why I'm so excited for this deep dive. We're tackling digital minimalism this time.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm curious to hear your take on it.
We're going deep into Cal Newport's book, Digital Minimalism, Choosing a Focused Life in a Noisy World. And what really struck me was how much these technologies have changed our lives without us even realizing it.
It's true. You don't really notice it happening until you step back and look at the big picture.
Right. Like, think about Facebook starting in 2004, just connecting college kids. Who knew we'd be spending 2 hours a day on average just scrolling and messaging?
It's mind-boggling when you think about it.
Or remember the first iPhone in 2007, Steve Jobs, was all about the best iPod we've ever made. No app store, no constant notifications. Our relationship with these tools has taken such a weird turn.
It's almost like we stumbled into this digital world without a map.
Yeah. And the crazy part is it wasn't some master plan. It just kind of happened.
And now we're all trying to figure out how to navigate it.
Exactly. And this deep dive is for anyone feeling overwhelmed by their devices. Like, maybe you're wondering if tech is chipping away at your happiness outside of work.
It's a common concern these days. It's like this constant low-grade anxiety.
Right. And our goal today is to help you gain some clarity and maybe even more importantly, that sense of control that you can actually make choices about how you engage with technology.
Empowerment is key, I think. People need to feel like they have agency.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's dig into this problem of unrestricted online activity. First off, so many people talk about the impact on their mental well-being.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that a lot. Social media especially seems to be a breeding ground for comparison and self-doubt.
It's like this constant highlight reel you're up against. Everyone else's lives look so perfect.
Yeah.
And it's easy to start feeling like yours is falling short.
Especially when you're already feeling a bit vulnerable.
Exactly. And for teenagers, that fear of missing out or being excluded online can be so intense.
I can only imagine. It's a whole different level of social pressure.
The point is, these platforms really magnify our natural tendency to compare ourselves to others, and that can have some serious consequences for our self-esteem.
It's like they're playing on our insecurities.
And it's not just about feeling inadequate. The book also talks about how online discussions can quickly spiral into these emotional extremes. Like everything gets so heated and polarized.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely seen that happen. It's like people lose all sense of nuance or perspective.
Jaron Lanier makes this really interesting point that online, the more emotionally charged content tends to grab our attention. So if you're spending a lot of time online, you're constantly being bombarded with this negativity.
It's like a digital echo chamber of outrage.
And it can be really draining without you even realizing it.
Yeah.
It's like you're constantly being pulled into these digital shouting matches.
And the platforms themselves are often designed to encourage that kind of engagement.
Right, because negativity is highly engaging.
Yeah.
So it creates this vicious cycle.
It's a bit disheartening when you think about it.
It is. And it's easy to forget how different things were initially. Like, remember that first iPhone? It was marketed as this amazing iPod that also happened to make calls.
It seems so quaint now, right?
I know. There were no apps, no constant notifications. No one was glued to their screens 24/7.
And the author even quotes Lawrence Scott, who said that in our hyper-connected world, a moment can feel strangely flat if it exists solely in itself.
I love that quote. It's like we've lost the ability to just be present in a moment without feeling the need to broadcast it or document it.
Right. I think that's a really profound observation. It's like we're constantly seeking validation from the outside world.
And the numbers are pretty staggering. The average person spends about 2 hours a day on social media and messaging.
Wow, that's a significant chunk of time.
And get this, we check our phones on average 85 times a day.
That's insane. I wouldn't have guessed it was that high.
It's crazy, right? It's like we're all on this digital leash.
So we've talked about the problem, but where do we go from here?
Well, the book introduces this really thought-provoking analogy, tobacco farmers and T-shirts.
What?
Yeah, it came from Bill Maher. He was talking about that brain hacking segment on 60 Minutes with Tristan Harris.
Yeah, oh yeah, I remember that.
He was basically saying that social media tycoons are like tobacco pushers selling an addictive product especially to young people.
It's a pretty harsh comparison, but I can see where he's coming from.
And it's not just Mar. In that 60 Minutes piece, Tristan Harris argued that technology isn't neutral. These platforms are designed to keep us hooked because that's how they make money.
It's all about engagement.
Exactly. And Mar even played a clip of Jeffrey Wigand, the tobacco industry whistleblower, talking about how cigarettes were engineered to be more addictive.
It's a pretty direct parallel.
Right. The point is that the design of these platforms isn't accidental. It's often geared towards maximizing user engagement, just like addictive substances.
It's a bit unsettling when you put it that way.
It is, and it leads us into this whole area of behavioral addiction and technology. The book defines addiction psychologically as pursuing rewarding effects despite negative consequences.
Right, so it's not just about substance abuse anymore.
Exactly. For a long time, we thought of addiction in terms of drugs and alcohol. But there's growing evidence that behaviors themselves can also become addictive.
Like gambling or internet use.
Exactly. The point is our brains can get hooked on certain behaviors just like they can get hooked on substances.
That makes sense. Their reward pathways in our brains don't really distinguish between different types of rewards.
Right, and the book mentions this 2010 survey that found behavioral addictions share many similarities with substance addictions.
So it's not just a matter of willpower or self-control.
Not at all. And what's really interesting is that in 2013, the DSM-5, the manual used to diagnose mental disorders, actually included behavioral addiction as a recognized problem for the first time.
Wow, so it's officially a thing now.
It is, which really underscores how serious this issue is. And this is where Adam Alter's research comes in.
I've heard of him. He's done a lot of work on addictive technology.
Yeah, he's looked at a ton of studies and talked to people inside the tech industry. And he came to a couple of key conclusions. First, these new technologies are really good at fostering behavioral addictions.
They're designed to be that way.
Exactly. They're not as intense as something like heroin addiction. You're not going to have terrible physical withdrawal from Instagram.
Right, but they're still addictive.
Yeah, and because these apps are always within reach, it's incredibly hard to resist checking them, even if you have a mild addiction.
It's that constant accessibility that makes them so insidious.
And here's the really scary part. Alter's second finding is that a lot of these addictive features aren't accidental. They're intentionally engineered into the design.
Like they're deliberately trying to hook us.
Exactly. So how do they do it? What are the main drivers behind tech addiction?
Well, the book highlights a couple of really powerful ones, like intermittent positive reinforcement.
That's like the slot machine effect, right?
Exactly. You don't get a reward every time you check your phone, but those unpredictable bursts of positive feedback keep you coming back for more.
Like a notification or like...
Right. And scientists have known for a long time that this kind of variable reward schedule is really good at shaping behavior.
It's like training a dog with treats.
Kinda, but on a much more sophisticated level.
And the other big driver is our drive for social approval. We're social creatures. We crave validation from others.
It's hardwired into our brains.
And these platforms tap into that need with features like likes and comments.
It's like they're giving us these little doses of social validation.
Exactly. Tristan Harris and Paul Lewis even talk about these bright dings of pseudo-pleasure that apps and websites use to keep us hooked.
It's all very calculated.
It is, and it's amazing to think that Facebook's didn't even have a like button initially.
Really?
It was added later, specifically to boost engagement.
Wow, so they knew exactly what they were doing.
And Sean Parker, one of Facebook's early presidents, has even said publicly that he's worried about the impact of social media on children's brains.
That's a pretty big statement coming from someone who helped create it.
It is.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've laid out the problem. Now, what's the solution?
Well, the book proposes this idea of digital minimalism.
Which is?
Basically, it's about being intentional with your technology use, aligning it with your values and your goals.
So not just mindlessly scrolling through social media?
Right. It's about using technology as a tool to support a good life, not letting it control you.
Okay, I like that. So how do you actually become a digital minimalist?
Well, the book talks about this idea of working backward from your values.
So like figure out what's important to you and then choose technology that supports those things.
Exactly. It's about being deliberate and making conscious choices.
And it's the opposite of what the book calls the maximalist philosophy, which is this idea that you should adopt any technology that offers even a potential benefit.
It's like that fear of missing out.
Exactly. Like you have to be on every platform and use every new gadget.
Digital minimalists are more like, what do I actually need? What will actually improve my life?
I like that. It's about quality over quantity.
Exactly. And the book shares some really inspiring examples of people who embraced digital minimalism.
Oh, like who?
Well, there's Tyler. He deleted social media and suddenly had all this time to volunteer, exercise, read, learn the ukulele.
Wow, sounds like a pretty good trade-off.
And his relationships with his wife and kids improved too.
That's awesome. It's like he got his life back.
He did. And what's really interesting is that his clients started noticing and saying, I wish I could do that. But they weren't willing to give up their own constant connectivity.
It's like they knew it was a problem, but they couldn't break free.
It's a tough cycle to break.
And there's another example, Dave. He's a creative director, and he intentionally narrowed his social media use to just Instagram.
So he didn't completely ditch it.
No, but he uses it very deliberately. He only posts one photo a week of his art projects.
So it's more about showcasing his work and getting inspiration from other artists.
Exactly. It's not about mindless scrolling or keeping up with everyone's lives.
I like that. It's like a very curated approach to social media.
And the book also talks about this concept of the return curve.
Which is?
Basically, it's the law of diminishing returns applied to technology.
So at a certain point, using more technology doesn't actually make your life better.
Exactly. It can even start to have a negative impact.
It's like eating too much cake. You might enjoy the first few slices, but after a while, it just makes you feel sick.
And the book uses this great example of how we consume news.
Like constantly checking our phones for updates.
Right. Instead of doing that, you could intentionally choose a few high-quality news sources and use a tool like Instapaper to read articles in a focused way later on.
So you're actually being more thoughtful about your news consumption.
And you end up getting more informed without all the stress and anxiety.
Makes sense. Another strategy the book recommends is removing social media apps from your phone.
So you're not tempted to check them all the time?
Right. You can still access them on your computer if you need to, but it eliminates that impulsive checking.
I like that. It's about creating some friction.
Exactly. It makes you more conscious of your choices.
And then the book has this really interesting section about the Amish philosophy.
As in the Amish people.
Yeah, they have this really deliberate approach to technology.
They're very selective about what they adopt.
Right. They really prioritize the benefits of intentional use over the potential benefits they might miss out on by not using certain technologies.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether.
No, it's about being thoughtful and making choices that align with their values.
And it seems to be working for them. They've maintained a stable and thriving community for centuries.
And it's not like they're completely cut off from the modern world. They have this practice called rumspringa, where young people get to experience the outside world before deciding whether to commit to the Amish way of life.
It's like a trial period.
Exactly. So they're making an informed choice. It's not just blind obedience.
That's pretty cool. I like that they have that option.
And one of the really interesting things that happens when people reduce their digital noise is that they often rediscover the joys of analog activities.
Like what?
Like reading, painting, coding, journaling, listening to vinyl records.
Things that don't involve staring at a screen.
Exactly. They're engaging with the physical world and using their hands.
It's like a digital detox for the soul.
And it's not just about solo pursuits. People also report a renewed focus on their families and in-person interactions.
Makes it like they're more present in their relationships.
Exactly. There's this one story in the book about a father who realized he was missing his children's milestones at the playground because he was always on his phone.
Oh, wow. That's sad.
It is. But he made a conscious effort to be more present, and it made a huge difference. He was able to really enjoy those moments with his kids.
That's beautiful. It's a good reminder that our phones can steal those precious moments from us.
And the book also gives some practical tips for reintroducing technology more intentionally.
Like what?
Like limiting social media checks to once a week, deleting social media apps from your phone, setting specific phone-free times.
So it's not about going cold turkey. It's about finding a balance.
Right. Some people even go as far as removing the web browser from their phone or buying a traditional watch so they don't have to check their phone for the time.
It's about breaking those unconscious habits.
Exactly. Okay, now this next part is really interesting, the importance of solitude.
Solitude, like being alone.
Well, the book uses a definition from Kethledge and Irwin that's a little more nuanced. It's about a subjective state where your mind is free from input from other minds.
So you could be physically alone, but not really experiencing solitude.
Right, like if you're scrolling through social media or listening to a podcast, your mind is still being bombarded with external input.
It's like you're never really alone with your thoughts.
And the book argues that it's becoming harder and harder to find this kind of solitude in our hyper-connected world.
Because we're always plugged in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It traces this progression from Thoreau's telegraph to car phones to iPods to Smartphones.
It's like technology has been slowly chipping away at our solitude.
Right. The iPod made continuous audio distraction possible, and then the smartphone, with its quick glance capability, pretty much eliminated any remaining moments of mental quiet.
So we're constantly stimulated.
Yeah. And it's a problem because solitude is really important for our mental well-being.
It gives us time to process our thoughts and emotions.
And to be creative and to connect with ourselves on a deeper level.
So how do we get more solitude in our lives?
Well, the book draws a parallel to Thoreau's experience at Walden. He intentionally sought out solitude, but he also made sure to connect with the nearby town regularly.
So it's about finding a balance.
Exactly. We need to alternate between periods of focused time alone and meaningful connection with others.
It's like a rhythm of solitude and connection.
And the book even talks about creating a metaphorical cabin by the pond through various practices.
I like that imagery.
Me too. There's also this story about a woman named Hope King who lived without a phone for over 4 months after hers was stolen.
What was that like for her?
She said some aspects were surprisingly easy, but she also experienced anxiety when she had to go back to being constantly connected.
It's like we've become addicted to our phones.
And the book also talks about the value of walking as a way to cultivate solitude.
Like going for a walk in nature.
Exactly. But the key is to walk alone without any digital distractions. Just let your mind wander.
I can see how that would be beneficial. It's like a moving meditation.
And finally, the book suggests the practice of writing letters to yourself in a notebook.
That sounds interesting.
It's a way to process your thoughts and emotions without any external input.
It's like having a conversation with yourself.
And it can be really helpful for gaining clarity and perspective.
I might have to try that.
Okay, so now let's talk about real-world social interactions.
Because online interaction isn't enough.
Well, the book argues that face-to-face interactions are inherently more valuable.
Why is that?
Because our brains evolved in a context where all communication was face-to-face.
So we're wired for it.
Exactly. These offline interactions are much richer. We're processing all these subtle analog cues like body language and tone of voice.
And online, we're missing all of that.
And it can leave our social processing networks underutilized.
But our social skills are getting rusty.
So the point is that those fleeting Facebook comments and Instagram likes, while they might give you a brief sense of connection, they're not as fulfilling as a genuine conversation or a shared experience.
So we need to prioritize real-world interaction.
Exactly. The book encourages us to be proactive in reaching out to people, suggesting phone calls or in-person meetings instead of just texting.
So put down the phone and meet up for coffee.
And the book also talks about the idea of letting go of weak-tie social media connections.
As in people you barely know.
Exactly. Maintaining these huge networks of superficial online relationships is a relatively new phenomenon.
And it's not really necessary.
Right. For most of human history, we didn't need to be constantly updating hundreds of people we barely know.
So it's okay to prune your social media connections.
Exactly. Okay, so this next section is about cultivating high-quality leisure.
Leisure, like free time.
Exactly. But the book takes it a step further. It looks at the financial independence community for insights.
Those are the people who retire early, right?
Well, they aim to reach a point where their investments cover their living expenses so they don't have to work.
Sounds nice.
And what's interesting is that they often choose to spend their free time doing things that are active and engaging.
So not just watching TV all day.
Right. They're often involved in things like hiking, bikings, volunteering creative pursuits.
So they're using their time purposefully.
Exactly. And the book introduces this concept called the Bennett principle.
What's that?
It suggests that spending more energy in your leisure activities can actually be more energizing than passive consumption.
So it's better to go for a run than to watch Netflix.
Exactly. Because actively engaging in something, even if it requires effort, can leave you feeling more rejuvenated.
It's like challenging your mind and body.
So the first lesson for high-quality leisure is to prioritize demanding activity over passive consumption.
Okay, I can get behind that.
And then the book talks about the importance of craft.
Craft, like making things.
Exactly. It's about applying skill to create something of value, whether it's a physical object or mastering a skill like playing an instrument.
So it could be anything from knitting to woodworking to coding.
Right. But the book argues that for truly rewarding leisure, we should focus on analog forms of craft.
Because they engage us with the physical world.
And there's something really satisfying about creating something tangible with your hands.
I agree. There's a sense of accomplishment that you don't get from just clicking a mouse.
So leisure lesson #2, choose analog hobbies that cultivate craftsmanship.
Got it. And what's the third lesson?
It's about seeking activities that involve real-world structured social interactions,
Like what?
like joining a sports team or a book club or volunteering.
So things that get you out of the house and interacting with people.
Exactly. The book uses the example of board game cafes.
People are actually choosing to play board games in person rather than online.
They are, because they crave that face-to-face interaction, the camaraderie, the shared experience in the same physical space.
It's about that human connection.
Exactly. And the book also mentions activities like CrossFit, where people work out together without headphones.
So it's not just about the physical exercise, it's about the social aspect too.
Right. It's about building a sense of community and shared effort.
I like that. It's like a modern day tribe.
And the book even suggests that we're seeing a leisure renaissance, partly fueled by the internet's ability to connect people with shared interests.
So technology can actually enhance our analog leisure pursuits.
Exactly. It can help us find groups and resources and learn new skills.
That's a nice thought, technology used for good.
And the book gives some practical steps for cultivating high-quality leisure, like committing to fix or build something each week, joining a club or group, and even making specific leisure plans.
So approach your free time with the same intention you might apply to your work.
Exactly. Okay, now let's shift gears and talk about joining the attention resistance.
What's that?
It's about recognizing the power of the smartphone and the attention economy.
And how they're often used to manipulate us.
Exactly. The book talks about how these forces are driven by advertising and the collection of our data.
And how companies like Apple and Facebook are playing a major role.
Right. Facebook has even tried to position itself as an indispensable infrastructure, something we should all be using constantly, without question.
Like it's a public utility.
And the book argues that Facebook's business model is threatened if users start being more critical and intentional about their use.
Because they're not spending as much time on the platform.
And the book points out that mobile usage is a key driver of the attention economy.
Because our phones are always with us.
Exactly. And smartphone versions of services tend to be much more attention-grabbing.
So they're designed to keep us hooked.
The book also talks about tools like Freedom that can help block distracting websites and apps.
So you can create some digital boundaries?
And it challenges the idea that limiting the capabilities of your computer makes it less useful.
It's about using the right tools for the right job.
Exactly. And then the book shares this really interesting example of Jennifer Greigul's approach to social media.
Who's that?
She's a professor who studies social media, and she has a very intentional way of using it.
Like how?
She focuses on specific interests, carefully curates who she follows, avoids features like Instagram stories that are designed to bait engagement, and prioritizes information gathering and networking.
So she's using it strategically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's not just mindlessly scrolling. She's being deliberate about how she spends her time and attention.
I like that. It's a good model for all of us.
And the book also advocates of slow media consumption, especially when it comes to news.
So not just constantly refreshing Twitter.
Right. It's about prioritizing high-quality sources over the constant barrage of breaking news.
Because not everything is breaking news.
Exactly. And vetted reporting from established outlets is usually more informative and less anxiety-inducing.
It's about taking a step back and being more thoughtful.
And finally, the book talks about dumbing down your smartphone.
What does that mean?
It means switching from a smartphone to a basic phone.
Like a flip phone?
Exactly. The book shares stories of people who have done this and experienced all sorts of benefits, like improved focus, increased presence, reduced anxiety, and greater overall happiness.
So it's like going back to the basics.
In a way, the point is that it's possible to live a fulfilling life without being constantly connected.
It's about making a conscious choice.
Exactly. And remembering that our time is valuable, we shouldn't be giving it away for free to companies that are just trying to profit from our attention.
It's a good reminder.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's recap the key themes. We talked about the challenges of digital overload, the power of intentional technology, use the importance of solitude and real-world connections, and practical strategies for cultivating high-quality leisure.
It's been a really insightful conversation.
It has. And I think it all comes down to this idea of reclaiming our attention and our time. We have the power to choose how we engage with technology.
And to create a digital life that supports our values and our goals.
Exactly. And I think if we can do that, we can create a future where technology actually enhances our humanity rather than diminishing it.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is. And it reminds me of something Samuel Morse said when he invented the telegraph. He thought it would bring people closer together and create a more peaceful world.
And it did in some ways.
but it also created new problems and new challenges.
Just like any technology.
Exactly. So the question is, can we learn from the past and use technology in a way that truly benefits us?
I think we can if we're intentional about it.
I agree. And that's the challenge for all of us. How can we use technology to become better human beings?
It's a question worth pondering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's all go out there and create a digital world that we can be proud of.